No kid's Jewish education should end at 13. Adjerba offers Ontario high school credits infused with Jewish learning online for teens across the province. Ministry approved, intellectually demanding, Jewishly transformative. Adjerba.ca. Your teen belongs here.
Hello, this is Guy Ochman. I'm here. I thank you for coming. This is our flag. We are here. We are part of 3,000 years people, and we are here always. Am Israel.
That's some of what it sounded like Monday night outside Toronto's largest Jewish community center, when a visiting Israeli stand-up comedian, Guy Ochman, finished his show and came out to the street to thank some pro-Israel demonstrators who were waving flags of the Jewish state, but also to confront a group of anti-Israel protesters across the street, whose aim was to annoy the 400 paying guests since they couldn't prevent the event from happening. Hochman's entourage was roughed up, but he remained defiant and refused to cancel his show, even though earlier that day he'd found himself held for questioning for nearly 6 hours at Toronto's Pearson International Airport. Canada's Border Services Agency told him they'd received a formal complaint from the Hind Raja Foundation and also from a Canadian legal group about alleged involvement in the Israel-Hamas war, accusing him of glorifying genocide with his viral comedy videos, some of which have been considered controversial, as he visited destroyed Palestinian homes and hotels or stripped down to his undies at a Gaza beach and jumped into the sea, claiming it was for the Jewish state. Ochman is not in the IDF anymore, but he entertains the troops. Canadian authorities eventually released him after Israel's foreign minister personally intervened, and Ochman made it in time to the event, as you'll hear later in today's episode in our exclusive Canadian interview with him. But the issue highlights the growing concern here in Canadian circles and abroad about the targeting of people with ties to the Israel Defense Forces, including potentially hundreds of Canadian veterans, those whose compulsory military service dates back decades, but also those who more recently left to serve as lone soldiers after October 7th.
There is no legal basis for arresting anybody, but you can certainly put a target on their back. And that's what's happening here.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. Welcome to North Star, the flagship podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, made possible thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. In 2024, the RCMP opened a broad structural investigation to gather evidence about anyone involved in possible war crimes with the Israel-Hamas war, but has not moved to the next step of actually launching any criminal investigation. In recent weeks, the issue of targeting Canadian IDF soldiers or those visiting here has also been in the news with the launch of January 7th petition supported by the NDP MP Heather McPherson, which asks the government to make sure any Canadian IDF veterans come under scrutiny. The government doesn't have to adopt the recommendation in the petition, but traditionally issues a response. She is a candidate in the current NDP leadership race. There's also been a request by a Montreal area Liberal MP, Samir Zuberi, to get the Canadian Border Services Agency to interview all incoming Israeli travelers. Meanwhile, there's a Canadian website still operating that's published the names and life stories of hundreds of former Canadian IDF veterans. We have several guests on today's episode directly impacted by these developments. Later on, you'll hear from David Coleman. He's an IDF veteran. But first, let's bring on Israel Ellis. His son Eitan's name and story was one of the original ones published on that list, and Ellis has been trying to get that site shut down ever since, while he also interviews experts on his podcast called The Unfiltered View, and he's also the author of a new book called 10-7, The Wake-Up Call. He joins me now from Toronto.
My pleasure, Ellen. And just to really important, the book is not about October 7th, but rather observations in answer to the question of how October 7th took place and the preceding days that followed, and as we know, the tsunami of anti-Semitism that has blanketed the globe.
Of course, our listeners have read in the Canadian Jewish News, our correspondent Joel Chaushu wrote a long article about the new petition, which NDP leadership candidate and sitting member of Parliament Heather McPherson is sponsoring, as well as to go after Heather Reisman's charity, the Chesed charity, the owner of Indigo, for helping lone soldiers. When you saw this petition, what went through your mind?
Canadian lone soldiers going to serve in the IDF is an absolutely legal activity. They are serving in an supposedly an ally and a democratic country, and they're doing humanitarian work. This is another confrontation of anti-Jewish sentiment and is clearly sort of another opportunity to hunt the Jew. The petition is indecent at best and supports other media out there, other websites out there that are publicly listing IDF soldiers, which is a terrible crime, a hate crime, if you ask me, with only one goal, with only one objective, and that is the exposure and the incitement of violence, identifying Jewish people in Canada who are participating in the IDF, but also businesses that are participating and doing business with Israel. So again, this is an indecent effort, and the unfortunate reality is that it seems to be that this bizarre progressive relationship with the jihadists is totally in conflict with liberal values. But when it comes to the hatred of the Jew, these things tend to be put aside.
The petition cites the Canadian Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act, which says Canada can prosecute any individual present in Canada, even though the crimes may have been committed outside the country. And we're talking war crimes of every nation. You know, we've had Rwandan and what have you. And even Israelis who come to Canada and visit their grandparents or come on speaking tours or what have you, from what I'm
Ellen,
reading.
I have to tell you that I take offense with the words war crimes. Israel is the assumption of this list is that Israel has perpetrated war crimes against, I suppose, the underlying is the Hamas or Palestinian people. This is not true. There has been no proven war crimes to date that I'm aware of. Nothing that has gone through any kind of legal process. I think to even suggest that there is a matter of war crimes being committed is at best bizarre and insane in itself. It is not true, and it leads into the narratives and into what is being propagated out there in false news and in the sort of tropes that, you know, along with baby killers and what have you, and that Israel is committing genocide. All of these are red herrings and distractions from Israel's truthful right to defense as a sovereign country, and that Israel, the IDF, subscribes to very strict adherence of engagement, rules of engagement with the enemy, over and above and beyond any convention out there that is established internationally. And to suggest otherwise is taking part and being part of these false narratives.
That's their petition words, not mine.
That is their petition, and their petition.
Yeah. They do mention that, you know, Canada should be doing this the way they do with, for example, war crimes of Russian war crimes in Ukraine, which is currently there's a structural RCMP investigation onto that too.
Now, by the same token, soldiers that would have gone to Ukraine and have fought the Russians in Ukraine should then also be tried and prosecuted for going to Ukraine to fight that war. And you're kind of looking at me like, what are you talking about? Ukraine, there's absolutely no comparison.
No, I'm not.
Well, okay, well, Ukraine is, you know, as far as we're concerned, not committing war crimes. Canadians are supporting Ukraine in a just war against an illegal war perpetrated by Russia, and this is very much the exact same thing. Canadians who go to Israel to fight in the IDF are fighting for a just cause. They are supporting the freedom and democracy of a sovereign nation that is an ally of Canada, and by no means is there any way justification whatsoever to even suggest that these people should be guilty of anything for doing that. They're operating completely. My son, other wonderful, wonderful kids in this country are protecting the values of democracy and are fighting terror and fighting organizations that are deemed by the Canadian government as terrorist organizations. So again, this petition and this act is actually an act of anti-Semitism, of anti-Israel, of anti-Jewish, which are synonymous in my opinion.
You mentioned your son, so we'd like to bring it up. Your son and your family came to a bit of prominence. As you mentioned, there's a newspaper that put together a list of IDF soldiers in Canada. They're up to over 200 names now. They got a lot of their information from our Canadian Jewish news reporting over the years, I have to say, publicly available information. You were one of the leading voices calling this out and being horrified and upset when this first happened. Maybe you can lead us through a little bit of what you've been doing to try maybe to stop this website or fight back.
Sure. The author of this website is David Mastracci, and the website is called maplenews.net. And the specific page that is being talked about is findidfsoldiers.net. They have since gone on to provide asterisks next to anyone who has served since October 7th. And now they are completing another list of Jewish businesses that are doing business with Israel. This is nothing less than a list hunting Jews. It is something that we're very sensitive about. We've seen it happen in Germany in the 1930s, and we all know what happened there. They claim that they're using public information, and therefore it is okay to publish. That is not okay. It is not okay to take public information and to use it for other than its intended purpose, number one. Number two, it's obvious that what they're doing is they're doing this to expose people, including myself and my family, for the purpose of inciting hatred in hopes that someone out there who's been radicalized or feels isolated or feels part of this jihadist goal is going to one day pick up a gun and walk out there and say, I'm going to do something about this. And then they will say that this person was radicalized and act as a lone wolf. That is not the case at all. I have appealed to many different levels of government about this. I have said this is absolutely indecent. It should not be allowed. If I put a website together about every Black person or every person involved with Black Lives Matter or any other kind of list, I think that I would be shut down immediately. Even
what about IRGC people that are here in Canada?
That's correct. I mean, we can expose them. And you asked me what we are doing about it. There are things that I cannot talk about. But at this point in time, there is a team of lawyers that are working with the RCMP and working with different federal levels of government to determine opportunities that are available to us. That's all I will say. And that I'm hopeful that something will happen soon. I also feel that the Israeli government, who I'm meeting with next month, should take responsibility here and accountability as well. And I have met recently in Israel with several members at different task forces within the Israeli government who are now very well aware of this site. And I believe that they're launching their own investigation. I am really counting on the decency of people, and all of us should be, every Canadian, every Jewish Canadian, every Canadian should just be horrified. And if anyone out there claims to support our lone soldiers, some who have made the ultimate sacrifice at protecting Israel, you should immediately contact your MP, your MPP, your town council. You should go out there and you should voice your objection to such a site. And we should do everything we can to protect the men and women that are making tremendous sacrifices to serve in the IDF proudly. I'm proud of every one of them.
Israel, how has this impacted your son?
My son feels hunted, just like other soldiers. They're afraid of coming into Canada. They're afraid of traveling on their passport. They're afraid that every border they come to, they're going to put them through the internet search and they're going to see exactly who they are and their names are going to come up and they're going to put their lives at risk. He cannot travel now without looking over his shoulder. My son said something to me that just ripped through my heart. He said, Abba, when we were defending this country, there was always the possibility of a bullet coming from somewhere. And as a soldier, that is something, whether it's a drone that you have 15 seconds or a sniper's bullet or an RPG, I never expected that bullet to come from Canada in the form of digital media. They're being hunted, and anyone who stands by and allows it and doesn't do anything is complicit. So I'm asking everybody, anybody who sees this, to speak up and do something about this today.
And quickly, you mentioned your colleague, your friend, your guest, the lieutenant colonel, who he was on your show in the summer. I'll put a link to the episode. And I would love to hear, but I understand that he says that the soldiers who are being targeted here can't actually legally be arrested. Can you tell me if that's correct and why he said, why not?
Yeah, sorry, Ellen. I think you're referring to Maurice Hirsch. Maurice Hirsch was the attorney for Judea and Samaria and was the legal prosecutor at the time in the IDF. Maurice Hirsch has a legal opinion about this and has told me, and I don't know, I don't have verification, but that the RCP has ensured Israel that there is no open investigation and that they are just looking at this like they would look at anything else. The fact that this actually has come up is a problem. Is there a legal basis for any kind of detainment or holding? Well, let me tell you this much. When you cross the border, the customs representative at his or her sole discretion can detain you for any period of time for any reason whatsoever. There is not a question of whether or not they have a legal right to detain you. You are in no man's land at that moment in time. But here's a fact that should something to think about. I was on a recent Air Canada flight, and at 35,000 feet, I had to endure a flight attendant who was wearing a map of Israel underneath the Air Canada pin, depicting in the keffiyeh and Palestinian colors, and you can take a look. I talk about it, articles about that. And I wrote Air Canada, and they tried to pay me off with a $500 credit. I am now pursuing a human rights complaint against Air Canada. Thank you so much for having me. I hope this has been informative.
David Kalman's name isn't on the list that Ellis's son is on, but he's deeply unhappy about becoming a target himself. Kalman and his family live in Toronto, where he runs a pest control company called Good Riddance Critters. Welcome to North Star. It's good to meet you.
Hello. Hi. Thank you, Ellen, for inviting me to join you.
Look, it's a very delicate topic, and a lot of families and people who have people in the IDF or are scared even to talk about this. So even talking about this with me is brave. So let's get into a little bit about when you served and how long ago it was.
Well, I'm from a family from Montreal. We all made Aliyah when I was very little. I was 5 years old. So I grew up in Israel. I went to school in Israel. And therefore, natural progression of school is I also went to the army afterwards, which was just like an extension of high school. And I served a normal army service. I served in a combat unit in tanks. I actually came to enjoy my army service. Usually the first year was not fun. And then afterwards it became, and it was like I say, it was one of my fondest memories and I'm very proud of this time. And I'll also say that these years are 91 to 94. So I also say, well, I happen to have served in possibly relatively the most peaceful time in Israeli history. So it was a fairly quiet time. No time in no year in Israel's history has ever been quiet, but this was a fairly quiet time. It was overall a very good experience that I feel everyone should do.
So we're talking 30 years from ago
30
when you
more.
finished. Yeah.
I started in 1991. It was 35 years ago.
Okay. And you haven't had to do Miluim or reserves since then?
I
or when?
would if I'd stayed in Israel, but I went directly to University of Toronto afterwards. So by being out of the country, you're automatically exempt. And then I ended up getting married and making a home in Canada. So I never did live in Israel in a sustained way since I finished my army service. There was once where we spent a few months in Israel, and I did do a little bit of Miluim, but it wasn't real Miluim. It was just going door to door and just updating people's information. I once got called up during the Second Intifada, but because I wasn't going to be in Canada,
It wasn't going to be in Israel, you mean?
But it wasn't going to be in Israel, exactly, yes.
Mm-hmm. So you've been watching where there have been organizations, for example, the Hind Raja Foundation, which is targeting former IDF or current IDF soldiers anywhere in Canada or around the world. And now, more recently, the Canadian scene. And when you watch this, what has gone through your mind?
Mainly, if it was coming from the NDP side, well, long ago, maybe even before October 7, I've written off the NDP as a crank party. Not as serious. I've had no respect for the NDP for a long time. But if it comes from the federal government, even if I did not vote for this federal government, then that, of course, does make me angry, because I don't like that the government that is supposed to represent me goes on a witch hunt, an unjustified witch hunt, certainly a politically motivated and wrongly politically motivated witch hunt. And all I can say is that these kind of actions, they just erode my entire trust in Canadian institutions more and more. And I'm steadfast in my optimism, because I know that in the long arc of history, we're right, and the people who are perverting and corrupting Canada now are wrong, and they'll be known as wrong. It's just a question is, how much pain are we going to go through to get there?
Well, speaking of pain, what has, if any, the impact of being a former IDF soldier been specifically on your family and you?
I know. And I know there's a doxing. And once again, I've almost even flirted with the idea of volunteering my name on it because of my pride in my service. And people who do that, they are just poisonous people, and they don't actually have any moral clarity of any sort. So I write them off. I wish it wasn't happening in Canada, but it is. And in reality, it does make me take Canada a lot less seriously, unfortunately.
So what do you think your friends that have been in the IDF, have you talked to them about, do they feel like they're targets?
Well, they don't, because they don't
what
come
is
to
the chatter? Yeah.
There's a pattern in the world that there are friendly countries and unfriendly countries. And yes, most countries we want to go to are fairly unfriendly, but there are still quite a few friendly countries. And if you're a friendly country, you don't pursue in these witch hunt tactics. Unfortunately, Canada has shown itself not to be a friend, and that is extremely upsetting to me, because it is also my country, and I don't like that I have to be part of a country that is unfriendly.
But David, you said unfriendly countries. So specifically, does it mean you are more discerning of where you'll go on holiday or vacation? Or, for example, I don't know where your relatives are, but coming to Israel and then coming back home, are you thinking at all about maybe getting into trouble at the border or any issues?
I'm not worried about me getting in trouble at the border. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I have nothing to hide. And honestly, if I was asked, the question is an indignant question in the first place. I don't think I would even want to answer it.
Okay. And as far as, your kids and what have you, did they at all, I mean, they're not in the IDF. Would you counsel them to do IDF
I have
service?
been, as my kids, as my wife's nephews. I would be very, very proud of them if they did any sort of service. My own son had no interest, and there's only so much pushing you can do on that matter.
Okay. So what would your message be to, for example, Canadian Border Service agencies or Heather McPherson and other members of the Canadian Parliament?
My message is that she could do all the noise she wants. I know that it's actually not a serious move. It's more of a publicity move. I don't actually even pay attention to her because I have not given her any thought for. I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about her party for years, even before October 7, but especially since October 7. The NDP has shown themselves who they are. And I think most Jews in Canada have understood that. And a lot of other people, Canadians who are not Jews, also understand that. And maybe that's hopefully means that they'll never be in power.
Is there anything else you want us and our listeners in the Jewish community to understand?
I mean, it's not really a witch hunt yet because I don't see it being pathological and obsessive. I hope it doesn't come to that, but it's much more of a sort of a virtue signaling of look how great we are. We're going to go after IDF without any balance of any other actor in the world. It's clearly hypocritical, but we know that, those kind of moves are now so cliche. I don't even feel like I know that they are motivated with malicious intent, not any real any virtuous intent. So therefore, they don't even point out they're hypocritical doesn't even mean anything anymore.
Okay, David, it's been great to hear your side of the story, and we really appreciate this.
Thank you.
As you heard at the outset of the episode, I got to interview Israeli comedian Guy Hochman about what happened to him while he was in Toronto. We spoke as he was en route back to the Toronto airport to catch his flight to New York City, where he was performing last night. And is it true that, I guess his name is Oren, was attacked by a protester?
Yes. The protest tried to get me, and the owner, my manager, just blocked him, and they fell down, and then the officers, and they took him down, the officers, and they arrested him.
And yeah, I want to know what happened at the airport. Yeah,
we came to Canada after the ski job. Something want to say that I don't know why. They charged they first charged against me about war and the story, and they started to ask me some questions, and they say wait here, and I was there 5-6 hours. They were polite, I have to say, really polite, but they do what they have to do because of the charges the prophet is said about me. And then after Gideon Sar and the ministry,
foreign ministry,
foreign ministry got involved, and the consul Yair Kapara Alav came and took me directly to the show. We didn't rest. We were so tired. The managers say also maybe to cancel it, but I say no. After all I've been through, and the Israeli community want to laugh. After they hear the protest for the hostages every week, it's my job to make them happy and to bring them a bit of Israeli shona humor here. I was in Qatar, I was in Dubai, I live in Israel, but it's not first time that protests shouting Viva Palestina out of the venue, but I'm proud of this. I'm proud to be Israeli. I'm proud to be the man who make our soldiers happy in the most difficult times. And if I need to pay for it, I will be glad to, because I did great service on darkest time. And if now they remember it, it's okay.
You said Gideon Sar got involved. Personally, he got involved, or the ministry?
Yeah. I talked with him directly, but the Canadian was really polite. I have to say, really, also the officers and also in the show, all the officers. There was amazing security, and the Israelis was amazing. It was a great show, and I think we sent a message that they will try everything legally, lawyers, protests, and still there was a show. So we didn't lose, and Israel is always winning. It's always high, and this is the message. Because if we will pass it, now it's me, next time it's a singer, next time it's only Adam,
Your company promoter has more Israelis scheduled to come. Is this a serious worry for him?
No, I think upside down. I think they see that the Israeli artist is not afraid, And also the Israelis here is not afraid. We're the Jewish people. And we are a proud Jewish people. We are not the Jewish for the World War II. And people told me they are not feeling dangerous here. This is the message I want to give. Very, very optimistic. You know, it's good that I had the Gideon Sa'ar, but he say, I don't know, someone else, like soldier come here, they will doing the same, and they will not get him in, you know. So this is the problem. I hope they are not doing this to my brothers who fight in the war. We will proceed winning. In this time we won, and we are not afraid. And this is my main thing. We are proud Jewish Israelis.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounded like for this episode of the CJN's North Star podcast, made possible thanks to the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. You can learn more about all our guests through the links in our show notes, or you can watch all of our shows on the CJN's YouTube channel. Our show is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman, and Michael Freeman is the executive producer. Alicia Richler is our editorial director, and the musical theme is by Brett Higgins. I'll be in Florida for a few days of R&R. I'll be back with a fresh episode Monday. Thanks for listening.